Hi, this is Jim Cranston from 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com, the podcast and website by, for, and about reimagining your life. Thanks for joining me today to talk about, well, some more perspective, but this time as related to health and longevity. So let's get started. So thank you for joining me tonight, of course, and if you like what you hear, please leave a like, subscribe, tell your friends, send me a message. Like I said, thanks for joining me tonight to talk about health and longevity and how much perspective can affect them. But before I really get going tonight, I just want to say something to you that I don't say nearly enough. You are all awesome. Seriously, every one of you is uniquely, wonderfully, exactly who you should be. You've learned a lot, you're interested in doing more, and that truly does make you awesome in many ways. And it's related to the topic tonight because we're going to see about how keeping a good self-image and just a positive image makes a huge difference in things. But also a public service announcement about a likely company sales. Say, what's that got to do with anything? Well, it has to do with health and good food. I'm celiac, or at least non-celiac, gluten intolerant. We don't know which. I don't care which. But one of the best things that ever happened to me in terms of food was Siete Foods, and Siete 7 in Spanish. And this is one of the products I get. They have beans, they have tortilla shells, they have lots and lots of things. The breadth of their product has increased immensely over the past year or so. And it's a cute little story. Everything is until recently, everything they had was grain free. Now most things are grain free. I believe everything is still all gluten free. And it's 7 members of a family. I don't know if this will show up or not, their little story. There we go. The Siete story. Was going to focus on it? No, it's focusing on my hand. Sorry. And but basically, it's a family of 7, and they adjusted their diet to accommodate one of their family members that turned out had a restricted diet intake. It's a really cute little story, and they've worked hard over the years. And now, what I just found out just before this podcast was that PepsiCo, yes, PepsiCo, oh, wrong side, there we are. PepsiCo, like Pepsi-Cola and all the other things, many snack companies are owned by them. They're in the late stages of a talk to acquire the company for about $1 billion, a little over $1 billion. And obviously, I'm very glad for the family, but it's actually kind of sad for me and for other customers because just like medicine, the food industry has become, well, an industry, and it continues to get more and more difficult to get high quality food. And we've seen these takeovers before, and always the words are always great. No, we picked this company because they follow our principles, and there won't be any changes to the product, and that lasts for some period of time, 6 months, a year, 2 years maybe. And Tom's of Maine went through this with all their dental care products. And then, of course, everything changes, and the formula changes, and the quality of the ingredients change, and everything else. And it was funny because I was just thinking in the store the other day, I was walking through the health food store that I go to, and noticing that Siete was picking up shelf space. And I thought, well, good for them, because that's really difficult to do in any market. Shelf space is the big companies dominate it. That's why your favorite unusual foods are on the top and bottom shelves, or behind some other display or something. And I thought they must be getting pretty large for that to happen, and clearly that's the case. Somebody thought they're worth over $1 billion. And so if you found something that you like and it's made by a small company, the only thing I can do is encourage you, support them and encourage them, because more and more we just continue to see, just when you think there's nothing left to consolidate, you have things like this, where companies started, some number of years ago and just really put a lot of effort in to make a superior product, and now they're just being acquired by a corporation. So there's something to keep in mind. Try and support little vendors. That's always what I try and do. That's why part of the reason I bought their products, and part of the reason I'll probably stop buying their products. And when you can, just write them a note, say, hey, I know this is hard. I know it's difficult to get shelf space, all those things, but you know what? I really appreciate your products. That's what really motivates people to keep doing what they're doing. Okay, so what got me thinking about this topic of health in general? And specifically what it was an editorial I found. Did I have it right here? I do have it right here. Also in the Wall Street Journal, as you know, if you listen to me at all. And the title of the article was, Ginkgo biloba, try a little grace instead. I thought it was an interesting article. And so I started reading it. And basically, it's the outward focus of the article was supposed to be kind of living with grace, but it quickly devolved into kind of decrying the increase in interest in longevity. And just the article is written in a very unusual fashion. And there were a lot of positive things in the article portrayed in a negative way, which takes some skill to do that. There were a few reasons I disagreed with the article, starting with it singled out baby boomers with a statement, and you can see it in the page again. I actually took it down, but the big call out in the center of the page. Where did it go? If I get it close, there we are. Right there is that baby boomers desperately seek to control the aging process. Them's pretty powerful words. And so, to begin with, the author, Miss Brenda Cronin is her name, is off by a couple of civilizations, not decades, not even centuries, civilizations. Since people have been trying to extend their lives essentially since they realized their lives had an end at some point. And even in our current modern history, there's a reason there was a crackdown, for example, on patent medicines in the early 1900s with the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. And, adding to longevity has always been a point of interest. And a note that 1906 is quite a bit before baby boomers were a thing. So I guess it wasn't baby boomers that started this. And again, it's not like wanting to live longer is anything new or became an especially urgent matter in just the past few years, because as writings have shown, if you look back, even predating Aristotle in 350 BC, to be clear, people were talking about how to extend their lives. But a few things have changed since the Minoan civilization, for example, in 3000 BC. Notably, we now have social media and more widespread health information. And those things taken together do change the interest in healthy living. So if we go back to the article, it's claimed that now people are publicly flaunting their good health, and this is her word, thundering, as she said, through old age trying to be young. And again, nothing really new here, except the potential audience to see this is much larger due to social media. But then it kind of goes on and continues to decry the modern aged population as trying to defy aging, and that again, baby boomers have discovered that getting older often feels quite bad. Like, that's kind of an interesting perspective on it. It's kind of like, maybe I missed the message, but I don't entirely agree with that. Matter of fact, I don't agree with it much at all. But hidden a few paragraphs ahead of that last real zinger there that we're supposed to think that aging is bad, there were a couple sentences that were mentioned in support of silly things that the baby boomers are doing. And I quote, "Hence, the bombardment of products and practices exhorting baby boomers and their young cohorts, before it's too late, ! To turn back the calendar, or at least slow its advance, eat less and sleep more, try intermittent fasting or transfusions of blood from youngsters, do crossword puzzles, work out and minimize stress, don't fret about getting older," end quote. Well, other than the transfusions, that paragraph is, frankly, just good health advice, no matter what your age. Do crossword puzzles can be generalized to stay mentally active, which is what a lot of the recommendations are now saying is one of the most important things to do throughout your life. Work out and minimize stress has repeatedly been shown to increase both longevity and attitude, and a good attitude further increases your overall health. If you remember last week, we talked about Liv Schmidt, who was removed from TikTok because essentially she dared to say she liked to be thin, and that made her feel better. Now, She wanted, she made a point not saying she wanted to be hyper skinny or even promoted any unhealthy eating habits, just that she felt better and felt better about herself when she was thin. You should be able to see where this is going. Now, in the weekend edition of a major newspaper, we have a column where a specific population, baby boomers, who are mentioned 3 times in a short column, with one of those mentions leading the standout sidebar, is being called out for taking care of their health. It was also mentioned that, gasp, people wanted to attain, you know, staying independent and in control. No one wants to be at the mercy of caregivers. As someone who acted as a caregiver for 2 older women for many years, I can personally tell you that every day I tremendously appreciated that one of them in particular, worked quite hard actually, at maintaining her health and her physical condition as long as she could. I didn't think it was selfish. I didn't think it was self-centered. I thought it was a blessing and that it made caring for her much, much easier. And it also allowed her to remain independent longer and have better relationships with her caregivers when they were needed, and also allowed her to remain socially active to literally days before she passed away. So what kind of silly goal is that to emulate, right? Seems the author thinks it's pretty silly. To me, it seems pretty smart. Now, the point of the column was to say how it was better to die after a life of grace. And she felt one of her neighbors was doing, who had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and had filled her life with grace. But saying that one item precludes the other, that grace and healthy living preclude each other, is a completely false dichotomy, as though living healthily precluded living with grace. Actually, it's pretty funny because it actually sounded like her neighbor lived the life the author was decrying, because she mentioned that the neighbor walked her little dog around the block at least twice a day and had just invited her to a big party she was giving. So, sounds like a pretty independent, in control, healthy person to me. Living with grace includes giving grace to yourself. So, what was the real complaint in her story? Is it that she thinks people shouldn't share a different version of aging than the incorrect one pushed by social media, advertising, the medical profession, drug manufacturers, comedians, society as a whole? Is she against people who are trying to live their life to their fullest and sharing the successes with other people to encourage them to do the same? Perhaps she has, totally bought into the story that there's nothing you can do about it, nothing you can do about your health, so you should do nothing. The story is pretty disappointing on many levels, and it was explicitly ageist, specifically maligning and targeting baby boomers. It was making light of well-known, sound, anti-aging medical advice, such as being both physically and mentally active. But perhaps the most disturbing thing was that it promoted the all-too-common theme that there's nothing you can do about aging, so you might as well do nothing at all. Then it extended that even further by saying that people who are younger than baby boomers shouldn't bother to try and change to a healthier lifestyle either. And this, exactly, is the type of negative bias and ageism influence that has resulted in the lowered life expectancies in the U.S. versus many other countries. If you missed the earlier episode a week or two ago, confirmed research done by multiple people shows a roughly 7.5-year shortening of lifespan due to ageism in the U.S. versus cultures where the elders of the culture are respected. And that figure, yes, is adjusted for income, lifestyle, and all the common confounding factors. It really is, after adjustment, about a 7.5-year difference. And that's why I've covered the topic repeatedly over the past few weeks. A lot of us probably think, well, I wouldn't be influenced by ageism, social media, or the news, or I'm smarter than that. But you are. The onslaught is constant, sometimes subtle, as in this Wall Street Journal article, but oftentimes blatant. I get a newsletter called Morning Brew, and the newsletter of September 28th, a few days ago, the copy for the lead story, it contained, quote, and I do quote this completely, "Check on your boomers." A new copy pasta spreading through the Instagram stories. Nearly 600,000 people have already shared, and it goes on wandering, end quote. Now, remember, I didn't actually say, but the Morning Brew, that's a financial newsletter. So, although it seems they often find themselves endlessly funny and always snarky, But the problem with the story includes that Instagram is not the preferred media for most boomers. That would be Facebook, thank you very much. And I really doubt all those Instagram people, those Instagram boomers, were, skipping dinner and doing everything to forward this story to everybody. But why should we let reality get in the way of a baseless, deprecating, false, ageist statement? It must be funny. It's targeting baby boomers, right? This is the sort of nonsense that we're exposed to every single day. And we can also look at the oh so politically correct newsletter Pod News. They have the statement, if you're still using a kind of colored equalizer thing, stop it. We're all laughing at you, boomer. Nice. Yet on their About page, they make sure to boast about their international viewpoint so they can contextualize the international podcast landscape. And they have a section thanking the Australian Turrbal and Jagera people and pay our respects to their elders past, present, and future. I may have mispronounced that, past, present, and future. End quote. And they make sure to mention that they're read by PBS and BBC staffers, amongst others. But in all the contextualizing, it seems that it's allowable to debase, dismiss, and denigrate the roughly 1.1 billion baby boomers, baby boomer-aged individuals, in the world today, which, by the way, is about 12% of the world's population. It's not easy being perfect, and we boomers are lucky to have so many perfect people around in the world today who think it's okay to openly be biased and prejudiced against 1/8 of the world's population, to ridicule them, to make public fun of them, and to be all the things they claim to be against. And I can come up with more than a dozen examples just from searching this past week's email newsletters that I get. And again, these aren't stories about baby boomers. This is using the word boomer in a negative, biased, and prejudicial fashion, quite openly and publicly. But despite all this, tonight actually isn't about ageism. Rather, it's about health. And that health starts with protecting yourself against the biggest dangers to your health as we get older. And that number one danger by far is to avoid being influenced by the constant stream of ageist comments and ageism all around us. You have to become kind of sensitized to it so that when you hear it, you'll recognize it. And when you recognize it and see it, you can call it out, either publicly or at least to yourself. Second, do not be influenced by the various common knowledge false facts that you'll hear, claiming things like, oh, I'm too old for it to make a difference, where it might be something like walking, eating more carefully, stopping smoking, or any other positive health change. All those things are absolutely clinically proven to be beneficial and will help your health. And yes, you certainly most can make a positive change. The best time to have done something might have been like 20 years ago, but the second best time is always to start today. If you think you have medical conditions that totally prevent you from making any lifestyle changes, then speak with your medical caregiver for some small ways you can start to make little changes. It's not a race. It's a long sort of, they say, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. That's the way improving your life and improving your health and improving your living outcome is. It's just one little step at a time. If you're in your 70s or 60s or 50s or 40s or 30s or whatever, don't get fooled into thinking that it's too late or too early to start making positive changes in your lifestyle. And I have to thank Ms. Cronin, the author of the article, for her very succinct and very good list of things to do for your health, even though she dismissed them. Eat less, sleep more, try intermittent fasting or any other healthy diet of your choice, do crossword puzzles or other mental activities, work out, be physically active, minimize stress in your life, don't fret about getting older. These are all good things, great things actually, to do no matter what your age. These are just good goals to keep in the back of your mind all the time. Take a typical example. You're thinking about getting, a bunch of you are going to get together, maybe for coffee, some Danish or something. Well, maybe have it at the park instead of at a restaurant. So when you're done visiting for a little while, you can walk around and just visit and do a little physical activity at the park instead of sitting in one place. There's a million ways to make small positive changes in your health, and all it takes is a desire to make one little change at a time. Remember also to stay socially active. Join a group. Go places where you might meet other similar people and actually talk to them. They're all great ways to help you know, live your entire life to its fullest in ways that match up with your lifestyle. I'm not saying you have to turn your life upside down, but there's a lot of things you can do that just are little tiny steps towards making your life better. But all these positive attitudes are constantly under attack by the negative age remarks. And those negative age remarks, those ageist remarks, just tend to wear us down. Worse, our mind is always sensitive to what's going on around us to try and calibrate to our environment. Our brain is susceptible to being fooled by the ageist noise. Even if we think we aren't affected, unless we call it out to ourselves and actively identify it as false to our brain, our thoughts about ourselves will become negatively influenced as we get older, no matter how old you are now. And remember the breadth of the examples I gave, you know, both today and then previously. Two world-class newspapers with ageist comments and themes in their content. A financial newsletter which regularly has ageist comments, so apparently they think it's really funny. A self-proclaimed inclusive and respectful podcasting newsletter who counts NPR and BBC as their readers. It's truly everywhere, and it truly is not true. Don't let it get you down. And again, and I said I don't say this enough, you are all awesome. You're making changes in your life. You're interested in making changes in your life. You have it. You truly are on the right path, and I'm here with you. So that's it for the evening. Have faith in yourself. Don't be afraid to try and live your life to the fullest. Ignore the naysayers. It's the weak people who depersonalize other groups by just, giving them a name and then referring to them in a negative way. Those aren't strong people. Those are the weak people. You have every right to be proud of what you've accomplished, and you will continue to grow in life as long as you want to. Never be afraid to live the life that moves you towards your vision. Your homework, always optional, is to think about some, health-related things you've always wanted to try, but now think you're too old to do. Ask yourself why you think that. Extra points if you take one of those health goals, and with your caregiver's advice, of course, map out a plan so you can start to see if you can make it at least a little bit of a reality. It doesn't have to be spectacular. It doesn't have to be a huge change, just something that's important to you, because you're unstoppable if you believe in yourself. So that's it for the evening. Remember, wars in Ukraine, wars in the Mideast, again, really picked up, I heard earlier this afternoon. Wars and unrest in South America, many places. There's a lot of things going on in the world. This isn't to be negative. Never give up hope. Never lose sight of the future. Never lose sight of your goals. But it doesn't mean that you don't have some bumps in the road getting there. UKR7.com, the first website I had up, those have links to help support Ukraine and the people of Ukraine. And then World Central Kitchen, WCK.org. That's an organization that goes into places where disasters happen typically and help provide food for the people for their basic needs. Real good places to think about supporting. And as we often talk about, there's a lot of ways. We have another drive going on here for Thanksgiving, which is coming up, not that far away, amazingly. And maybe you want to do something to help the people locally around you. And even if you're not in a position to make a donation to something, remember that it's always, it doesn't take a lot to make a significant change in the world. It can be something as simple as a smile. Oh, and also that's right, I almost forgot, all the damage and injury in the wake of the recent hurricanes in the southeast U.S., Caribbean, and Mexico. It's hurricane season. But, again, that you can do little things, and little things can make big differences to somebody, and particularly if there's somebody catch them, they're a bad time, you just smile to them and say, hi, good morning. It's just, it changes their mindset, and when you think outside yourself, it changes your mindset and your approach to the world. So if you can and you're able, check out one of the ways to donate, or remember that one of the best ways to care for yourself is to care for others. Just say something nice to somebody and make their day a little better. So, as always, thank you for stopping by. If you found something interesting and useful, please pass it along. If not, please subscribe and hit that like button. And if not, please drop me a comment as to what you'd like to hear. Have a great week. Remember to live the life that you dreamed of, because that's the path to true contentment. Love and encouragement to everyone, and see you next week on 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com. Thank you.